I'd barely turned 9 when I experienced the scariest event of my life. That horrid picture was branded on my mind, the cause of many sleepless nights. That event made me fear every stranger for years, not knowing what was inside of their heads. My mother always listened to her gut. It saved her on multiple occasions and grew into a trusty ally. After meeting our neighbor for the first time, she had such a bad reaction that she told me to never talk to the old man. It didn't take long for me to break that oath. I could never quite understand why she was so strict about that rule. I'd look at his house from my window, but I'd never see any movement inside. He always covered his windows, and the lights were off. No noise came from his house either. Sometimes I wondered if he even lived there. One day, after my parents had given me a scolding and forbidden me from watching TV, boredom tortured me. I went from sleeping, to hanging upside down, to making weird noises in an effort to relieve that boredom, but it only grew worse. It was then that a thought of our neighbor wandered into my mind, and I couldn't quite get rid of it. The thought was, what if I pranked the old man? It was a thought that bounced around between the sides of me that found him strange, strengthened by my mother's remarks, and the side of me drowning in boredom. The winner was boredom, and I quickly put on clothes and climbed out of the window. My room was on the first floor, so it was rather easy. I knocked on his door and ran behind a bush. I waited for 1 minute, then 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I realized that I'd get no response. So, I slowly snooped back up to the door and knocked again, this time faster with more power. I ran away again with the eagerness of a boy dipping his fingers into fire. My heart raced and a smile crept up on my face, but once again there was nothing. Nothing. No curtains moving, no noise inside, nothing. I walked back again, starting to get bothered. My leg rose up. This better get a reaction. I bent them a little. My ears grew more acute at listening to any noise. My feet flew for the door and stopped with one loud bang. I heard a shriek that made me shiver and I almost dropped down. It was a shrill sound with no coherence to it, no words trying to be said, just pure rage. Was there another person living in the room? I heard footsteps thundering through the house, getting louder as they approached the door. It was a lie to say that I'd never quite seen the old man. Once, I'd seen him taking out a large trash bag filled with what looked like clothes. He looked like he was doing an everyday task, and gave me a smile when he saw me. One day later, I saw flies buzzing around the trash, and I wondered what was inside of the bag. I ran away. I don't think I've ever been faster. My heart thumped so loudly that I should have gone deaf, but at that moment, my ears were strained and listening for noise. I glanced back to see the man standing in the window. It scared me and I ran faster. When I reached the window, I climbed inside, shutting it behind me and pulling the drapes over it. I fell down on the ground, wheezing, and then I began to laugh. That was exhilarating. Only a couple of seconds later, that happiness disappeared when I heard somebody knocking on the door. My mother opened the door, and it was exactly what I feared. I pressed my ear against the wall, forcing my breath to be silent. The neighbor was there, and he told my mother about what had happened, but fortunately, she didn't believe him, and she insisted that I be grounded to my room, and that I'd never do something like that. They didn't argue for long. I can understand why. My mother was a pain to argue with, especially when she got heated up. The old man must have realized the futility of doing it and stopped. The door closed, and I thought that was it, but a shadow appeared in my window and slowly grew larger. I know it was you. Never do that again. The shadow walked off, and despite my fear, I stuck my eye through a crack to see the man walking home. I saw him walk to a window, open it from the outside, and creep in. My eyebrows furrowed. What the hell? The act looked strange and unnatural, but I knew that the old man was a bit strange. I couldn't quite discard the image, but it didn't bother me much. The rest of the night, I had the joy of a winner, and in the days following that, the memory played on replay, filling me with a sick sense of joy. I thought about doing it again, but decided against it, being satisfied with what I had. The punishment ended, and I found myself back watching TV, but something was different. It just didn't feel as fun, actually, it felt boring. My mind wandered back to images of the neighbor and I can't describe it, but it was alluring, drawing me in. I needed to go back there. I did, stepping up to the door, his door. Anxiety from last time welled up, and I had to convince myself to do it. I clenched my stomach and was about to knock when I noticed a camera above the door staring right at me. My body froze. I couldn't knock. He'd show the footage to my mother, and she'd be pissed. I could forget about leaving my room for the entire year, or even more than that. It just became that much more exhilarating. I stepped back from the camera's view and wondered how I should go about this. I thought about it, and I remembered him opening his window from the outside and climbing inside, and I wondered if I could do the same thing. No, I can't. I'd be breaking into his house. A clump formed in my stomach as my heart started beating more ferociously. It was so wrong. It was so exciting. What's the worst that could happen? If he caught me, then he'd just hand me to my mother, right? I decided to do it. It was morning, after all, and he was probably asleep. Creeping around the corner, I saw the window he'd climbed through. It opened easily, as if it was just hanging there. Inside, I saw darkness. I gulped before putting my hands on the rims and pushing myself in. I landed on the wood, trying to make as little noise as possible. It was dark, but some light still managed to penetrate through the blinds. I looked around the room, and I saw a few coats, shoes, and a couple of wigs, which almost made me laugh. Why didn't he put this next to his door? I crept deeper into the room. The door hung open, and it led into a hallway. The walls of the hallways were littered with paintings of mosquitoes. Practically every inch of the walls was covered with them. There were anatomical paintings, abstract paintings, and even photographs. I knew that some people were obsessed with insects, but this level of obsession felt wrong for me as a 9-year-old. The darkness grew thicker as I walked further into the hallway. I noticed that the paintings changed as I progressed. They weren't paintings anymore, but sketches, and what they showed was some sort of meaty mosquito. They looked abhorrent and disgusting, and I really wondered what in them made the man want to plaster his walls with them. All this time, a nasty smell had grown on me, and now it was at its peak. In a room, I saw odd shapes, ones that I mistook for humans at first and almost gasped, but quickly realized they were 20-odd figurines. I noticed that their skin was completely white and they had been chained to the roof. I also saw that their mouths had been gagged and covered, and their eyes were wrapped in a black bag. I jerked when I saw one of them moving, their chain slightly shaking. I found it really cool that they had motion sensors, but couldn't understand why they smelled so badly. "Elizabeth, is that you?" The voice bounced around the walls, coming from upstairs. I froze in fear. I realized then that I'd never heard the noise of snoring, or any noise for that matter. I wondered what the man was doing and also how he'd heard my steps. They were so silent, even I had trouble hearing them. "Yes, it is, darling," I said with the highest pitched voice I could manage. The moment after I said it, I regretted it. The next moment, I felt my chest shiver and shake. The next moment, I was sprinting for the window. I jumped out of the window, rolling around, and I glanced backwards to see the old man standing there, staring with a face poured with rage. Fear jolted me, and I ran 10 meters to my door without breathing. I swung it open and slammed it with such force that it must have suggested I was alone at home. I say this because I heard someone knocking on the door about 20 seconds later, while I was slumped down on the floor with the biggest grin on my face. "Who is it?" I shout. "It's your neighbor," I heard from behind me, and my heart froze. "Open the door. My mother tells me not to open the door to strangers." "Does your mother tell you to creep into people's houses?" I was silent. "No?" "Then open the door, or I'll tell your mother. I want to show you something." I can't lie, I was a bit tempted. Now I realized that my mother would never believe him if he said it. But at the time, I was caught up in the punishment I'd get if she did, and if he had a camera inside of his house. "What are you going to show me?" "Open the door and I'll show you." "Tell me first." "Child. Open the fucking door." "No. Open it." I've never been more thankful to hear a car steer into the driveway. The old man grew silent as I heard people getting out of the car. It didn't take long before they were screaming at each other. Fortunately, my father was there as well, so things didn't escalate as I knew they could have. That man wasn't sane. My head peeked through the window, watching them. Soon, the old man stomped back home. That day, my parents made me swear again never to talk to or go anywhere near that man. I did, and when I was in bed thinking about what had happened, I couldn't help but think about the next time. It was so exhilarating that the mere thought of it made me kick and bounce in my bed. I decided to scout out what I'd do next and stood up looking at the house through my window. In the window I'd crept through, the man stood, completely still, staring at my house. He had a vacant look in his eyes, as if he was looking somewhere else. Suddenly, the man's face started contorting and shifting. His nose grew wider and thinner, until it was like a blood-sucking straw, poking at the window. His eyes bulged outwards, jumping in and out of their sockets, slowly growing darker and larger, reaching back to his ears and forehead, and fracturing into smaller pieces. His ears grew upwards, and pointy orange hair filled them. A smile formed on his face, as fear spread over mine. I fell back and clutched my face as tears ran down my face. I rolled around on the ground, breathing, heaving, and crying as silently as I could. A vampire, I thought. He's a real vampire. I never ignored my mother's warnings again. I also realized that each step I took in that house could have been my last one. And when I realized what those figurines really were, I never found those memories funny again.